And we are recording now on Skype on video, and you're with us. I don't know. You can see behind me are some students. Those who are behind me, raise your hands if it's okay to be on videotape. Raise your hands. This is class, and this is John Trigonis. The students, I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. We also have an outside guest who heard you were going to be here. He's a professional in video and martial arts and other things, so he came to listen and pay attention and sit at your feet. And as have I. And but the students are sophomore, junior, senior filmmakers. They are director, writer, producer, editor, cinematographer, animator, candidates or hyphenates, and they are both doing projects on their own as well as school projects. This video will go to YouTube, so it applies to anyone and everyone, out there in the filmmaking world. So this is John Trigonis. You're the author of a book called Crowdfunding. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about you, about the book, what you're currently doing at Indiegogo, so that all viewers and listeners have an opportunity to know more about you.
Perfect, yeah. Can you guys hear me great?
Yeah.
All right, great. So yeah, guys, thanks, Rex, again, thanks for having me here. I'm John Trigonis. I am, so a lot of things. I'm a filmmaker, writer my whole life, practically, filmmaker for the last 12 years or so, and crowdfunding, I don't even know what to call myself, guru, expert, whatever people call me, I will take, as long as it's not nasty. And yeah, so I've been that for about 5 or 6 years now. When I crowdfunded my first, it was my 8th short film called Cerise. It was the first one I ever partially crowdfunded. Most of the time I save up money to make my own films outside the studios and all that stuff. And this time I decided to crowdfund to see if it actually worked. I discovered that it did work, and it just blew my mind to the idea that a community can come together to help us create something that we really want to say, a story to tell. So that ultimately led me to giving away free advice on Twitter, which took a lot of my time, so I decided to write a book called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers, figuring, well, that'll take away, that'll give me some time back, because I could just be like, hey, read my book. I was doing that, but I was also helping people for free, because I don't like to charge people for stuff. And Indiegogo ultimately caught wind of me, and the fact that I probably wasn't getting paid for the excellent advice I was giving, so they said, we should probably be paying you to do this for us. And I said, you know what? There's only one company I'd ever consider working for in my entire life, and this was it. So everything kind of worked from there. So now at Indiegogo, I am their head film campaign strategist. Basically what I do is I help film campaigners craft better, stronger, faster, sometimes campaigns to raise more awareness, audience, and funds. Notice how I keep the funds at the very end, not because it's the most important, but because it's actually the least important part.
Interesting.
And
we got a little bit of a stagger there, and I don't know, it might be your Wi-Fi or something, but you're back.
Okay, cool. All right. I hope you didn't lose too much.
Well, you cut off your sentence about the least is not the least is not the most important, but the least important.
That was the most important part.
And there we go again.
At the end of the sentence, because it's the least important part of what crowdfunding actually gives you, which I'll talk about much more through the conversation for sure.
So I have a question for you. We're connected also by phone and by text. You froze again during that time, and it might have done it again. Are you on Wi-Fi? Is there a way you can wire in?
There's no way I can wire in. We actually don't have any way to wire in here.
We'll deal with it. But if you don't see me or we don't respond for quite some time, we may have to call back, or we'll work it out as we go on.
Yeah, just let me know.
Let me ask you this, and the students will have questions, as I know that people always do.
Yeah.
I'll put it in terms of me. I'm a filmmaker, and I want to make a movie, and I need money to make a movie, and there's just no way around it. You tell me it's the least important part of everything, and I tell you, no, I got to feed, and I got to pay, and I got to clothe, and I got. So so how least important is it in the context of crowdfunding? Because that is different than going out and doing the SEC, or maybe different than asking my aunt or uncle or grandparents or friends for money. So why is it the least important, and what do I really need to know in order to try and get that least important piece together?
Totally. No, it's great. Yeah. So yeah, let me clarify the money being the least important. So most of the time, what I notice, and I work with a lot of campaigns, the ones that go into it because they need the money, they tend not to raise part is.
You froze.
This might sound like,
You're freezing.
really?
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Go. Take two.
Right. Yeah, so a lot of people who go into crowdfunding for the money, they sometimes don't raise all of the money that they set out to raise because their mind isn't where their heart is. And that sounds like a little poetic and philosophical BS, but it's the actual truth. If you go into it thinking that you're going to get money without putting the crowd first, you're not going to raise any money. You're going to raise a little bit, but your mind isn't where it should be. So that's the reason I put it as the least important. The first important thing you need to always do is want to get an audience, because that's the one thing that crowdfunding gets you, that investment.
You froze, John. It froze again. We'll keep you. Your last word was investment.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, so it's certain things like that, like the crowd. Getting a crowd is our job these days, to find our crowd, to our audience, for lack of a better word, and to bring those people into the fold of what it means to make a movie. So it's very different. If you need money, I'm the first person to say, go get a grant. Go take the time, put in the paperwork, wait for the grant to hopefully get accepted or not. If you need money, go and get funding from investors. Good luck. Do it. Hopefully you'll get one or two that put in some big money. That's great. If money is what you want, then do it the traditional way. If you want an audience to see your movie, crowdfunding is the way to go, because you will get the audience. The investors will never get you an audience. And without the audience, what good are we as filmmakers and storytellers? That's why funding is the least important. In order to get that funding, though, you have to treat the audience or the crowd the way they want to be treated. They want to see what the process is like. They want to be a part of the movie-making process. So when we decide to crowdfund, we are going to be giving more of ourselves than we ever would give. We're going to be letting people into the world of our films more than we ever thought possible or safe. Because there's still people who are like, oh, I don't want to let anybody read a piece of my script. They might steal it. That's a dead mindset in today's world. It's like nobody's stealing it. They want to see what your script is about, because if they like it and they like you, they're going to give you more money. And ultimately, when you treat that crowd right and you engage them and interact with them and make them feel like they are invested in your movie in a different way than a traditional investment, they will give you money without even blinking, which is why it's the least important. Because if you do the crowd right, the funding comes.
That's really, really cool. So it's people first. I didn't mean to stop you in your tracks like that.
No,
You froze. So I said, it's people first.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so this is an interesting concept because I think a lot of people just go for I need dollars, and I'm assuming you can hear me. That people just want dollars. They don't necessarily think about having an audience because so many filmmakers that I've grown up knowing say I'm going to make a movie and I'm going to throw it out there. You know, it's going to get a DVD or a video release or a video streaming release or a theatrical release or something, and it'll find its audience. In other words, they're just going to come because I've made something, as opposed to I'm going to find an audience who wants my material and deliver that to them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the field of dreams mentality is also kind of, you know, a dead dream. You know, there's the exceptions, of course. And I think a lot of times we as filmmakers we harp on the exceptions, but the fact is we're not all going to be Ed Burns. We're not all going to be, Spike Lee. We're going to be Rex. We're going to be John. We're going to be all you guys back there. And your story of how you're going to get there is going to be completely different. Those are anomalies. Those are people who are, whatever. But they also put their audience, they've spent that time to build up and find an audience that wants the kind of stuff that they're giving. So, I talk to a lot of people, and again, there's still like this idea that, and it's a good idea, and it should be the case. I learned it firsthand with the book publishing world, which is why I never want to publish another book traditionally ever again. Because I do, for my book, every book that I've ever sold, I've sold. I love my publisher, they're great. They don't do anything for me. I'm the guy marketing, I'm the guy. And in my head, I was like, I'm writing a book, I'm a writer, I'm a filmmaker. And then once I get it off my plate, they'll take care of it. They won't. They won't unless you're Stephen King. They won't unless you're Ed Burns. And they can invest a couple of millions because they know they're going to triple that. But the thing, so we are the only people who can do this. Now, with crowdfunding, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're building an audience to do it smart. Because
you froze there again. I think you started to say to do it smart. I don't know. I'm filling it in, but
perfect. To do it smart, you want to build the audience before you quote ask them for money. And I put the ask them for money in quotes because in my mind you're not asking anybody for money if you're giving them value, if you're making them a part of your film. You're not ever asking anybody for money. But you want to build that audience first because it does leave a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth the minute you follow somebody on Twitter or Facebook and the next thing they send you is, hey, check out my Indiegogo or my Kickstarter campaign. It's like, wow, you don't give a shit about community, do you? Unfollow, block, get out of my life. That's not your audience. That's not a person you want to associate with, and that's not the kind of person you want to be as a filmmaker, crowdfunder, human being, to be quite honest. So there's a lot of those little, I guess I call them etiquette rules that aren't really written, but it's etiquette. It's like you want to treat people the way you want to be treated, especially when you are going to, quote, ask them for money ultimately down the line.
So it's almost like, if you don't mind me asking, it's almost like a kind of a mixture of the way YouTube does things versus how, it's almost like a kind of a mixture of the way that YouTubers make money and regular filmmakers make money. Like it's kind of a blend of the two. You're making money through a growing audience, but that audience is also investing in your film.
Absolutely.
That was Ryan.
Yeah, that's
all right. Cool. Good to meet you, Ryan. That's a great example. I mean, YouTube. It's funny. I work with a lot of YouTube campaigners too, like Freddie Wong, who did Video Game High School. The Wong Fu Productions, who actually just released their Indiegogo funded film, and it just got a bunch of great press. And the beauty of YouTubers is they've got the audience, but they've been working to get that audience for 10 years. When 10 years ago, I think it might be safe to say that most of us said, what is this YouTube crap? It's never going to catch on. 10 years later of people doing the stupidest things, they're billionaires now, and they have millions of audience members that the minute they crowdfund something, because they've been giving away value for free all these years to that audience, the audience doesn't even have to think about it. $50 is nothing to them at that point. And they give it because they've invested in the person. And again, just like we said before, Rex, it is about people first, even in the situation of who am I, the crowdfunding filmmaker? Who am I? Do you like me? Do you like the stuff that I do? Am I cool? Am I interesting? Do I have good ideas?
You froze.
Definitely invest in your film projects, regardless of what they are. You could be a horror filmmaker one year and do a romantic comedy the next, and your audience will be there. That's what YouTubers do brilliantly, and they have been doing for over a decade now.
I'm glad Ryan brought that up and that you addressed that as well, because I think it's an important point. Now, we said people first, and you said etiquette, and I always think, as I know you do, John, that you add value, because you just said that you add value, you give it away, you cultivate an audience before you ask. And the problem with most people is that they ask just too soon. They just go, "Hi, I'm Bob, give me money," and people don't respond that way. I mean, it's maybe different in the investor world, and even then you don't do that. But it may be different. I can't think of a way. Going to my uncle and going, "Hi, give me money." Without some nicety up front. So the point is that there's a tendency for people to say, well, there's etiquette, there's rules, and I just don't need to pay attention to any of that. Let's just get to the meat of it. But this truly is the meat of it. If you're going to ask for something, you need to prepare. It's like if you're going to plant a plant and you want it to harvest it, you got to prepare the soil. You just don't go in and get fruit out of the ground.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, and I think part of it is, and I think we all kind of feel this now. Everybody seems like they're crowdfunding for something, right? So we have the big wigs, right? The super troopers, the con men, the Veronica Marses of the world, who crowdfund these huge amounts, and they make it seem easy. So then we think it's easy. We can just go to the crowd, and we forget, where's our crowd? Do we have a crowd? People, the big myth, and it's an unfortunate myth, is that, again, if I build it, my crowd will find it. I still have people who set up a campaign, they put it on the site, and they just wait. They wait for money to come in. And I'm like, guys, you gotta work. Like, this is full-time work. Put the effort in. Because nobody's going to find your campaign, especially today. 5 years ago, it was a possibility because it was so less saturated. But then everybody else is like, all right, I need money. I need $5,000. I need $10,000. Let me go online. And all of a sudden, you start looking. Social media is a great way to see where a person's mindset is. If they're crowdfunding, first thing I'll do is go on Facebook, go on Twitter, look at their Facebook page for the film. If I see like 100 likes, I know that you recently set that up. Or you set it up a while ago and you just didn't put in the work to build up the audience, which means you're not going to be very successful. I look on Twitter, and I love Twitter because people don't realize how powerful it is. Rex and I definitely realize the power that it has. But it's like, if I see that you have like 2 followers and your first 3 tweets are about your campaign, your mindset is on the money, and you're not going to get any of that money because you're not going to earn it because you haven't earned the following. You haven't put out enough value to the world. So the biggest advice I give people isn't even crowdfunding advice. It's social media marketing advice. And it's not even marketing advice because that's like a 4-letter word these days. It's just be a person. Go out there and have some fun on social media for 6 months before you even think about crowdfunding. But because things happen so quickly, we're very impatient. We got to make our film now, today. Ask yourself, if I make my film today, who's going to see it?
I have a question.
This is Wes.
I have a unique project. I want to do a DVD on women's self-defense. I've been teaching women's self-defense for a while. I'm a certified Systema Russian martial arts instructor, nationally published author on violence prevention. I've been doing my business called Defense Works for over 14 years. And I'm looking at finding out, like say using Indiegogo, the how-to process. In other words, yeah, I've got maybe 3,000 personal friends on Facebook, and maybe 10 know me. I have another website on Facebook called DefenseWorks, which is my self-defense website. I've got about 600 active likes on there. But my target audience is basically parents who are sending their children, specifically their daughters, to college. And I want to know what is the best way to reach that target market. Whether it is, and I've done personal appearances in Milwaukee. I've been on television programs and done all that stuff. Is there like a bullet point thing you can share? This is what you need to do, 1, 2, 3, 4. I did contact Indiegogo. I set up an account. I was trying to find out what category to go into because there's education and there's film. And I wasn't sure if I am in either one or both and how I would do that. They did send me some information in terms of articles and blogs, but as a business owner, my time is very limited. So I fall into that category. I would like some funding, but I want to do it right. What can you tell me?
Perfect. I love specific questions like that. That's great. Roger, right?
Wes.
Oh, Wes, sorry. I don't know where I got Roger from. Sorry about that. So the key thing to reach out to, so your target market is definitely, in my mind, mommies, right? Mommy bloggers. That's your biggest market. If you start talking with mommy bloggers, if you start talking about self-defense, talking about college, give them content. So I don't know if you write articles, but
yes.
Content is king in everything. Write an article about the importance of self-defense in college for today's world, this and that. Start publishing that on Medium. Medium is a great to share it, get interviewed by them.
You froze on Medium is a great.
What's Medium?
Cool. Medium is basically a site that it's basically a blogging site, but without having your own. You don't have to have your own blog, but it's basically like a content creation site, so you can write articles. For attention spans, and things like that. So I read 2-minute reads.
So again, you froze. But you said you could write articles, and then the next thing we heard was attention span. So I assume you're saying you can write short articles for the short attention span.
Yeah, because Medium tells you how long it'll take you to read it. So that's really the helpful aspect of it. But it also, if you get featured on their main page. It's basically because you earned it rather than like favoritism, which is pretty cool. So again, I would just kind of post valuable content specifically to mommy bloggers to get on their radar if you're not on their radar already. Because what happens is you want to get 1 or 2 of them on your side to vouch for you because they're probably the most powerful kinds of bloggers in the whole world.
How do you find mommy bloggers? I mean, you go to Google and go mommy bloggers? I mean, what's the...
Google, top 10 mommy bloggers, you'll get a list. It's out there. The information is so at our fingertips. It just takes, it sucks because that part of it feels like you're wasting time. It's the most important time you're going to spend, is the research of it. So, I would start there. If you don't have, it sounds like you have a pretty good following on your pages. More important than the numbers, because I've seen Facebook pages with like 10,000, 50,000 likes total, and they don't do really well crowdfunding sometimes. What I look at is per post, how many likes do you get? How many comments do you get? Is the page responding to those comments? And how many shares are you getting, most importantly? If you're getting those numbers and you're getting those on a regular basis, nice and high, that's a better indication of how well you could do possibly with crowdfunding versus having 10,000 or 600 likes on your Facebook page.
So to clarify, I'm going to add, you're looking at the interaction between the page owner and the page readers or the people who go and like it. You're having lots of likes is meaningless, but the interaction, the activity that the site generates, the conversations. Same with Twitter. Same with the Pinterest.
Any kind of social media. So, it's just the idea is social media is social. If you're just posting about you, you don't belong on social media. End of the day, you're not giving value. You could be posting, but you want to be giving value to whatever audience you're trying to tap into.
Well, let me use, if you don't mind,
not at all.
use him as an example. If every day he said, "Moms, keep your daughters safe," or "Girls on campus, here's what you can do to remain safe." If every day he posted something like that on YouTube or Twitter or Pinterest or whatever, it's not just about him. There is a message there. There's value there, but it's not a question. You're not engaging anybody. You're making an announcement. Is there a way to better engage people than, because I do a lot of announcements. For guests, because I figure this is about my guests. So how do you capture the people that you need to capture with your information?
Well, the key thing is, if you're just posting, parents, keep your kids safe, and there's no link to something else to read or see, then there's no value.
Well, no, I mean, he's going to have a link to his article or to his website or to something. It's not just a theater marquee or a headline.
No, I've seen people just do those kinds of things.
Oh, right.
It doesn't quite work. What I find works really well, asking questions, posing a question out there, getting your followers to answer. But the key thing about that is you have to be there to respond. Because again, if you wait till tomorrow to answer a conversation that's happened between 5 other people, you're already late to the party.
Well,
so it's kind of this constant interaction thing that needs to be maintained. You don't need content every day. You can recycle content, but whatever content you have has to be relevant to the time and to your audience that you're writing in.
Well, what I particularly like you say is if you're going to use Twitter, it's a real-time thing. So you, during the hour that you're on is the time that you hope to have a conversation, not come back 2 days later and go, "Oh, that was a great question," because you've lost the momentum. That's a good point. Yep. All right, I think Wes has another question. Anybody else have questions? Because this is something regarding you or your projects.
Well, specific example, in my DefenseWorks Facebook page, I usually put some videos on there of the specific martial arts that I teach, but when I put it up there, I get maybe 2 or 3 likes out of 800 people. Now on Facebook, it's something called Boost Post, and I'm not exactly sure what that means. I've never clicked it. I just put that stuff on my DefenseWorks page. It comes up on my feed, and then I click it again as a like and share. So I'm reaching I don't know how many people I'm actually reaching, because apparently the response is rather small.
And can I piggyback that question?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
At one time, Facebook was primarily social. Now it seems to be primarily financially driven by, you can boost a post, you can reach, you can maximize your reach, you can do all these things. So the question would be, for Wes and for anybody listening, how do you reach people if you don't pay to reach people on Facebook or some of these sites? Is there a means by which, or a platform that's better or do you have to pay? In other words, I want to raise money. That's the thing I have to do in order to raise money. I have to pay for post.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. As far as I know, and this does suck.
It does. You froze. Can you hear me when
unfortunately, now. Yep.
I don't know. What happens is the screen will freeze, and the screen will freeze, and your conversation will be halted. And I don't know if you can still see me, or if you can hear me when that happens, or if everything has frozen.
Oh yeah, I still see that.
Because if you see me and I go like this, I'm letting you know that it's frozen.
Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah, no, I still see you guys. So. Because I'm looking at your DefenseWorks page right now, Wes. Mm-hmm. So, just, and again, I don't want to make this totally about social media, but it is so darn important. And without social media, there is no crowdfunding, period. That's a fact. So, right now, there's very little to, I hate to say it, but to no interactions on your Facebook page. Out of the 634 people who like the page, you're going to reach about 10% of that organically per post, which is really nothing, but that's how Facebook does it, because they want you as again, you got a page, you're under the small business category. In Facebook's mind, they're like, you should be paying us to help you, reach your audience, because we're giving you this real estate here on one of the world's biggest social media sites. They're right about that, because they're a business, they only care about money. So we have to think creatively. Two things I would recommend. Number one, is to do, to definitely come up with some, excuse me, getting over some allergies, is to definitely, take some money aside for posts that give a lot of value, because you want to boost those posts to see how much more of your 634 people you can reach. I wouldn't boost every post, but if you have an article that goes out, if you have a video that you're going to show, give it a chance. Put $30 in. See what you can reach. The other thing to do is Facebook dark posts, which are these posts that go out. If you Google Facebook dark posts, how to do them, it'll show you the ropes of it. But basically, it's creating an ad that will appear within your stream, or your stream of, for people to see. So it's not like a side banner ad, which obviously are the most annoying things in the universe. But this is actually, if I'm looking on my feed, it'll come up as a post from DefenseWorks. And it'll be a paid post that's reaching me because you paid to reach it, and it's kind of like an advertisement. Those are two things that I would do with that. But yeah, there's no real getting around it. I would say go to Google Plus. That seems to be a little more, a little bit more. Well, I don't know what the word is. Free is probably the word right now. But unfortunately, as great as Google products are, Google Plus just never picked up. And I don't think it ever will, unfortunately. So there's not a lot of traffic and traction of people who are going to Google Plus, which is basically the same thing as Facebook. The interface is nice and, as nice. And there's just, Facebook has, years of more of experience in this social media realm. There's really no way around actually paying for these posts. My thing would be, when you're crowdfunding especially, and this is something that I find myself saying more and more, because I notice sometimes people, they want to raise and it's just, nice. So what I find is people, they want to raise a lot of money, but they don't necessarily want to invest a lot of money to basically raise more money. And in today's world, the more crowdfunding evolves, you have to invest in your stuff, because if you're not invested, why should I? That's the question that your audience is going to start thinking.
So, if you have questions, please ask, but I'm going to ask this, and that is, what do I need to do as a filmmaker to gather an audience and find an audience that's relevant, that would bring me money? Because every filmmaker that's on Indiegogo has been hit already, most likely. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I'm trying to crowdfund from filmmakers, they've all got their own campaigns that they're trying to crowdfund, and while people may reciprocate, my guess is that that's not the audience who's going to look at my film anyway. If my film is about, a mad scientist who collects baby dolls, or if my film is a romance comedy or something like that, I'm not trying to get filmmakers to see the movie. I'm trying to get rom-com boys and girls to see the movie, and horror sci-fi people to see the film. So what do I need to do in terms of putting my head together to go, I want a particular niche audience. Where do I find it? How do I create my pages, my campaign?
Yep.
I'm a Western guy.
So there's a couple of questions in there, and then I'll definitely get to like what I'm calling the 3 ins of crowdfunding these days, which basically encompasses what you need for crowdfunding. For the audience building part, so there's 2 audiences that you need to tap into. You need to tap in, and they're different. You need to tap into your community, and you need to tap into your audience. They're 2 separate things. So the community are filmmakers. Okay. Filmmakers, you know better than I think probably anybody else, Rex. We gravitate towards one another. We help each other out. People like you, people like Casey Ryan, people like David Bullis, with their podcasts and their, guests and stuff like that. They put Film Courage. I mean, that's what I don't, they're giving constant stuff and they're connecting the film community together. And what happens? We go out there because we're talking to these filmmakers that we meet through these programs, and we're genuinely talking to them. We're not talking to them with the intention of asking them for a handout later. That's not what we're doing. We're talking about Stanley Kubrick. We're talking about Ed Burns. We're talking about Tribeca. We're talking about all these things. We're building a community. Do that for months, years if you can, right? We should all be doing it, and if we're not, when you're done today, you all should start tapping into those folks. That's your community. They are going to help you. They are going to be the people who, even though they're crowdfunding for their own stuff, they're going to share your campaign as well. Because that's the one thing I learned 5 years ago when I was crowdfunding for my film Cerise, and I saw people giving me $25, and then I noticed, holy shit, they're crowdfunding too. Why don't they just put their $25 in their campaign? That's when my mind was blown. That's when I realized the money doesn't matter. The community spirit is all that matters. Cultivate that in the film community. But you also now have to go after your audience, the rom-com people. Half the filmmakers in the world, they probably don't like rom-coms. If they're making horror movies, they don't care about rom-coms. They might not give to your campaign for any other reason than you're a filmmaker. And that's great. That's the community. The audience. Look for people who talk about horror. Look for, if there's a horror movie that's coming out, and I'm using horror because it's one of the biggest, genre-type films out there, a little bit more so than romantic comedies, but you can definitely find those audiences, but horror it's just there. If I always tell people, if you're because I teach a horror crowdfunding seminar every semester at SVA too, and I always tell them, I said, I'm like, guys, you guys reading Bloody Disgusting? Are you guys reading, Rue Morgue? And they're like, sometimes the students are like, we never heard of those. And I'm like, guys, I hate to break it to you, you ain't making horror movies. Because you're not in the world. You're not going after those audiences. If you can't talk intellectually about the next big B horror movie to the Twitter audience that loves hearing opinions about horror movies, you're not going to be able to tap that audience. Which means you should probably be making romantic comedies, or whatever you want to tap into. So it's a lot of interaction. It's a lot of talking just as people do. I tell people when we go to an event, a physical event, we're very happy because we get to talk to people in person and this and that. But we look at online sometimes as this screen in front of us. And it's not the same thing. It absolutely is the same thing. Twitter, Facebook, social media, it's still being social, physically or not. So talk to people, interact. You read a link in an article about romantic comedies that you like, share it. The important thing, share it and hashtag it. Rom-com, romantic movies, film.
All right, let me...
3 hashtags to tap into those wider audiences.
I want to ask you about that particularly. You have the 3 things that you read. I think those are excellent points. Again, it comes back to people communicating, talking, sharing, providing value first, and this whole sense of being connected. It amazed me when Zach Braff and some of these other big guys were raising money that there's this backlash. People going, well, the big guys shouldn't play in our pond, and I thought, if you give to Zach Braff, maybe he'll give to you. I mean, it's not, in other words, maybe not, but maybe, you know what I'm saying? I mean, who knows? If people reciprocate at all levels. So, I don't want to make any hard, fast rules about who does and who won't, or who won't and who will. But again, it comes back to we're in a people business. Even if right now I'm reaching out and trying to touch you on a screen, it still boils down to that very human connecting factor and the how do I do something nice for somebody else, or how does someone do something nice for me, and how do we kind of make the world a better place for all of us.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
That's what we're doing with our stories, right?
So hashtags. Everybody says hashtag. What's the best way to use hashtags and why? I mean, I rarely search a hashtag, and should I?
It's funny. That's a great question, Rex. The hashtags they're still very important, and that's what makes Twitter, like, probably outside of Reddit, which I don't use because it's just ugly as hell.
It's hard to use.
It's the most powerful social media because of the hashtags. I don't search necessarily a hashtag, but if I search film noir, which, as you know, I'm a huge buff,
Sure.
I don't need to hashtag it, but when I see it, there are thousands of people out there hashtagging it to make it easier to find, and that's what the search is going to look for as well. They're going to look for the words film and noir, but if you connect it, you can connect into a bigger audience. The fast rules about it, I mean, I stay up to date on social media as much as I can. Right now, you don't want to use more than 3 hashtags at a time, at least on Twitter, because it's just people then think you're actively trying to connect, like to target a certain audience, and they look at you more like a business instead of a person who genuinely wants to have a conversation about film noir movies. So you want to keep it to about 3 hashtags, and you want to search which hashtags are going to be relevant for you. Again, maybe hashtag mommy blogger isn't an actual hashtag, but maybe mom blogs is. There's only one way to find out. Google it, research it, see what hashtags have a wide enough reach. What I typically tell people to do is, like, if I know that I'm making a film noir and that's going to be my audience, I'm going to hashtag film noir, and I'm going to check that every day to see what people are talking about, what they're sharing, and I'm going to make sure to talk back to them about what they're saying. Because if I love the movies, then I probably have an opinion, I need to share it and cultivate a conversation. Will they contribute to a campaign 3 months later? I have no idea. But I'm making a connection without the ulterior motive.
Well, that right there is the biggest thing. Nobody ever that I know of in my years of living ever wants to feel on the hook for somebody else because you've done something, whether it's your children or your parents or your loved one or your partner or whatever. You don't want to say, I did this for you,
Right.
now do something for me. The whole scratch your back is nice in concept, but it's the thing that has to be a genuine thing. You do it because you want to do it, and if they reciprocate, great, and if they don't, great. You got to be genuine to yourself and say, I'm doing it because I want to do it, not because I want somebody. Because I think people can very readily see through when you're giving something to get in return.
Yeah, they absolutely can. And it's getting more and more every day, because even with just regular marketing, I noticed that regular marketing, social media especially, is getting more personalized, like every day, which makes me very happy, because you know me, I'm not a business guy. I can't stand business, and I love marketing. I almost wish I went to school for it, but I think they would have messed me up severely.
Well, there's the John Trigonis School of Marketing.
Exactly, which is really the Gary Vaynerchuk School of Marketing, which he would also agree that marketing just kills everything. So don't market.
Well, I want people to ask questions. If you have questions, especially about campaigns, and I want you to get to your 3 reels of the thing. There is a way of doing too much. Like, I've gotten to the point now where I don't click on certain links that I see because I know I'm going to have pop-up ads all over the place. I'm going to have, every article I go to now has something that darkens the screen, and there's a close button, and then all the close buttons are in the upper right, but then somebody decides to put it in the lower right, and then somebody puts it in the upper left just to make it harder for you to have to go. And I'm like going, I don't want to deal with these people anymore. I don't want to. It's like, I came to you because you have an article on your site. I don't need everything else. Or I accidentally clicked on something on Facebook. I now constantly get hit for these ads, You know, and it's not anything that actually interests me. But I go to YouTube and those ads pop up on my screen. I go somewhere else and they pop up on my screen. So I guess what I'm getting at is the notion that, you know, the big corporate people and people with money can do all that and irritate the heck out of us. But we as filmmakers in this community don't want to be irritating each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. We and that's why, like, with any kind of posting that you do, especially during a campaign. During a campaign is even harder because you have to campaign. This is where it's kind of a duality thing. It's like, I got a campaign. If there's a day that goes by that I didn't promote my campaign, I'm not going to make money. It's bottom line. But there's a way to do it right. I always tell people, you know, you have to be creative. We're filmmakers. Whether we're making documentaries or horror movies, we're creative individuals that tell stories. It's not enough anymore to go, make it happen for my Indiegogo campaign 15 times a day. It's not enough. 5 years ago, it wasn't enough. You got to make people want to click on that link, so you got to be creative. Talk about your film. Talk about nuances in the movie itself. And then all of a sudden there happens to be an IGG link in there that somebody will click because they read what you wrote and it intrigued them. They don't know what the link is necessarily, so they clicked it for more info. Oh God, an Indiegogo campaign with more info. Not should I contribute or not, more info. Let me read, let me watch this video, let me contribute. It's all about, on social, when it comes to crowdfunding, it's all about enticing us and getting our attention to grab us and bring us to your page for more information.
That's excellent.
And that's the hard part, because especially in 140 characters, like, you gotta be creative, and you have this much room, and then not even 140, because you need 20 characters for the link.
That's
so
right.
It's like, there's so much, you know, there's so much you gotta pack in there. And another big mistake that folks do make, and then I'll get onto the good stuff, because I don't like to talk much about mistakes, but they're happening a lot, and they constantly, no matter how many times I write about it, they happen every day, is I still see people, and this is what I call a, quote, spamateur, an amateur spam artist. I mean, if you're going to be a spam artist, be a fucking professional. You know, that's my mentality. Like, spam me, give me the respect of treating me like I'm nothing at that point. But these are amateurs, and they basically
Lagged again.
awesome experience, and I kind of smell it a little bit. I see the wave. Good. Yeah, so it'll be like, at Trigonis, you know, help support my campaign. It's a great project. Okay, that's fine. I'll click on the person, not the link. I'm going to click on the person because it smells fishy to me. And then I'm going to see, you know, that they wrote the same exact message 15 times and just put a different Twitter handle. First thing I do personally, I block them. I don't want to see them anymore in my feed because you're not doing this shit for the right reasons. So
we have 15 different account names, Twitter handles?
15.
Wow.
They'll just basically copy paste the same message directly to different people.
Oh,
so number one, I didn't feel special.
I see.
You know, and it's like that's not enough work. Put some effort into it. You really want me, John Trigonis, to contribute. Learn a little bit about me for a minute to know that the minute, and it's well known out on Twitter, the minute you do that to me, I block you, like, because I don't have time for people like that. You know, who aren't in that frame of mind. You know, there's ways to do things the right way with a proper etiquette. I'm big into the proper etiquette. So that's that. The key, you know, and I think this is a good segue into, I'll start in reverse with my 3 ins. I used to call them the 3 Ps of crowdfunding. You know them well, Rex. We've talked about them on your show numerous times. My 3 Ps were pitch, perks, promotion. And then, you know, these are the 3 things you need to run a successful campaign. And I changed them when I did this TEDx talk for Jersey City in November because I noticed that they weren't personal. They felt too businessy to me. That 5 years ago, they were great because I didn't know any better. But now I'm like, no. I used to actually tell people, yeah, pitch, perks, promotion, but you have to personalize each one of those. So I finally came in with the idea of there's 3 ways into a person's heart, and ultimately into their wallets.
Live again.
And that, the incentives,
Last word was in from their heart to their wallet.
perfect, good. And those three ways are the invitation, the incentives, and the interactions. So
Nice,
we
nice.
spend a great deal talking about the interactions. And again, the interactions start 6 months sometimes, maybe 2 months if you're really good at social media and you have time. You can do it within 2 months, but it usually starts before the campaigning and then goes way beyond the campaigning because the interactions are not just for crowdfunding, they're to sustain your careers as filmmakers. Because that's where it's shifting. Unless you're going to move to Hollywood and really do it on the ground running. That's the only difference. But if you could be anywhere in the world, you got to be interacting on social media, making the difference.
May I ask while you do?
Yes,
While you do?
please.
In other words, the goal being, you want to develop an audience who you will repeatedly purchase from you because they value your wares, your product, as opposed to trying to get a new purchaser, a new customer every time. I mean, in business, they would say it costs more to get a new customer than it does to sell the old customer. So in this case, it's not just about the sales, but it's about that community, about a following, it's about that interaction, so that every time you come out with a new movie, if it fits the audience that you connected with, they're there and more readily available to buy it should they be interested. You're building a base of support as opposed to trying to pitch someone every time.
Absolutely. And again, I've seen people who do pitch each time in that way. Like every new project is a new audience, and that's partially true as well.
Sure.
But you always are going to need that base. Like today, people, we look, and I use Ed Burns because he's like the godfather of crowdfunding. He was doing it long before it was even a thing. He has an audience that it doesn't matter what kind of movie the guy makes, they will see it. That's the kind of stuff that I think every single one of us as filmmakers has the potential to hit. Maybe not at his level, he's up here, but at our level, yes. We can be the kind of director that somebody says, oh yeah, Rex Sikes, I know 5 of his films, he's awesome. He's working on a horror movie, let's do it. That's how it goes. So yeah, and ultimately you are going to still be reaching out to a deeper audience each time, but if you have, with each crowdfunding campaign, let's say, if you keep building the audience bigger and bigger, then you have more people to go to the first initial ask, and then you have to build out less and less each time. And to me, that's like a smart way to kind of market yourself. So that's the interactions. Jumping to the invitation, remember earlier I said, like, quote, ask people for money. I actually do not believe that crowdfunding is about asking for money. I think if you're asking for money, you're doing it wrong. And it's the only time I'll say that something is totally wrong in crowdfunding. And now people usually look at me like I'm 17 heads and they're like, what do you mean? That's the whole point. No, the point is, I'm going to make an invitation to you, the audience, to check out what it's like to be a filmmaker, to get into my world, to give you experiences that you will never have when you go to buy a DVD at the supermarket or download, a movie to watch later from iTunes. You will never have those experiences. You might be lucky you get the bonus features which show you what it's like behind the scenes, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invite you to join me on the set to be a part of this. I'm going to invite you to see what goes on in my head. People want access more than anything else. They want a reason to be able to tweet about it. They want a reason to post a picture. So the invitation, in all honesty, yes, the invitation is asking someone for money. But nobody wants you to ask them for money.
What I love about the way you think and what you do when you put your work out there is that you think about what the experience of the other person is first, irrespective of what I may have to offer. So in other words, it's really looking at what can I do for that person. It's like if I run a carnival and I am running the little roller coaster ride for kids, if I thought, you know what, every one of these kids is going to have the ride of their life, I'm so glad to be here. That's different than trying to sell tickets to fill my ride, and it's that mindset that you promote that I think is really powerful, and it's the stuff that people really need to hear, listen, and then implement.
Thank you. No, and I'm glad you caught on to that, because it is the mindset. And I blame Winnie the Pooh for the mindset and Taoism.
Yeah, of course.
Things that I study a lot. Because I study Winnie the Pooh. But the idea of, look, as filmmakers, we're trying to make it. We're struggling. We get jaded. We get tired. We get screwed over. Our script was stolen from us. We get mad at the world. It's so easy to lose that not a naive or innocent mindset, but that Winnie the Pooh idea of just people. It's not about me. I want to make a film. That's where it ends. How do I get that person there, that one person, to want to know more about my film so much that they're willing to give me a little bit of money to help make it? That's what it becomes.
But and on top of it, though, if I, as the filmmaker, or any one of us, or anybody watching, goes, when it comes to the incentives, when it comes to the perks, how do I help this person actually have an experience of being there? What are the things that I can put before this person that allow them entry into this filmmaking world, that allow them access to what's going on behind the scenes, that allow them to feel connected, not just, oh, wow, look, I got a DVD, or, oh, wow, I got a cup, with the name of a movie on it, but that allows them to go, ooh, this is cool. I'm part of something.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's you're moving us right along. I love it. The invitation to the incentives, they kind of work hand in hand. The incentives are what I call the perks now, except at Indiegogo, because company-wide we still call them perks.
Sure.
But they're the rewards. They're the things you get, right? I have 3 types. I have the standard definition perks, which that's the DVD, that's the mug, that's the T-shirt. Filmmakers, please stop making T-shirts. We don't need any more. Nobody wants them. The only people that can get away with a $75 T-shirt, because that's how much we're going to have to charge in order to make any money, is YouTube stars, because they have an audience that wants those T-shirts. So forget T-shirts. Nobody likes them. That's mandatory items. Those are easy to do. There's no thought, creativity to anything. Offer them. Experiential perks, what I call high definition. Those are the experiences. So again, I mentioned before, I'm going to invite you in, but okay, on a DVD, you got the special features. It shows the behind the scenes of how the movie was made. I'll one-up them. I will broadcast on Periscope for you for $50. Broadcast on Periscope 2 days of my shooting. You can watch all day long if you want. But it will be broadcasted live. I will talk to you. I will respond to you. All of a sudden, you are on set with me in a virtual setting. Live, real time. They love it. And again, why do I say broadcasting? That's the new thing. A year ago, I would have said, we'll Skype a conversation. Yeah, we still do that too. But think of what's relevant now. Everybody loves Meerkat, Periscope. That's the new social media stuff. Be on top of it. Because those are the experiences. Even things like the set visit. Look, if you're shooting in Milwaukee and you have somebody who lives there, they want to come to the set, they're willing to pay $300 or $500 and eat, craft services and hang out with the cast. Let them come, give them a good time, treat them like they're gold. That's the experience. You can't get that in any other way. Then there's the 3-dimensional perk, which is the personalized perk. These are things like, you have an Instagram account, say thank you to each individual funder on Instagram. Just say a quick thank you. That's what Don Cheadle did, and he charged only $45 for them. This is Don Cheadle now. $45, he said, thank you, John Trigonis, for supporting the campaign. Really appreciate it. People loved it. Sold out. So these are the personalized perks are the ones that really make a deeper connection. I always cite Cerise because Cerise, the film that I did, was one of the first campaigns that did. This is not me flaunting my own shit. This is actual the CEOs of Indiegogo, Slava and Today, saying this. Basically, it was one of the first perks that country for $10.
One of the first. That's where it froze. Indiegogo people said it was one of the first.
Yeah, Indiegogo folks said it was one of the first perks that were highly personalized and really made a connection with people. And basically, I was writing poetry at $10 from every person who contributed at that level or more. And again, I wrote over 100 poems. I worked my ass off for $10 a poem. I tell people this, and then I ask them just for shits and giggles. I'm like, guys, how much would you have charged? They're like, $500. I'm like, wow. And then I tell them, guys, I'm a published poet. I was nominated for a couple of pushcart prizes. Like, I've been in major publications, and I'm charging $10 for my skill. That's why I sold over 100 of them. At 500, they wouldn't have sold any, because it's just not worth it. And that's the key thing is, we're going to do a lot of work as filmmakers when we crowdfund. That one, we will not get paid for. And number two, that's going to take hours out of our day. But the more work you put in, the more reward you're going to get in the form of that number going up, up, and up every time. Because you're engaging the crowd, you're giving them more value for less money, they're going to give you more money.
John, as a housekeeping note, we got about 15 minutes hard. That's, with break.
Cool.
So we have got a question from Stephen.
Hello, John. Stephen. I was thinking about your audience first and making it grow to personalize your audience and really care for your audience. Out of all your films that you wrote, have you ever thought to replace "Hey guys" with "Hey everyone" or "Hey y'all"? Have you ever considered not using the term "Hey guys" when referring to characters other than men because it marginalizes more than half your audience? Are you one of the screenwriters that can break that mold of misgendering people, which in the end will help out with your crowdfunding?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in like you're actually talking like the semantics of like the word "guys," right? As a general term for people, correct?
Yeah, especially when there's a group of females calling each other guys also.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm big into that. I mean, I'm one of the I'm one of the first people that I knew who was like, putting the word "her" before "him" anytime it's like, oh, her, his, etc. So I'm a big believer in that. I use the word "folks" when I speak, especially on Twitter. I never use the word "guys," and my audience is primarily guys. But I use "folks" because I'm more conscious of, I don't really know who's following me today, who's following tomorrow. So I want to make sure that's all kind of connected. But I do personally think it's important to keep everything as equal as possible in that sense, especially when you're crowdfunding, because you just don't know.
Michael?
I hope that answers that, Stephen.
Oh yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. You'll always be politically correct.
And this is Mike. Cool. Michael has a question.
Hi, John. This is Michael. You mentioned that you wouldn't mention crowdfunding before 6 months of working social media for a project. But if I could kind of frame my question, if I were looking at somebody's horror movie idea page, Facebook page, Twitter page, why should I keep returning to that idea if I don't yet know that that can become something more and that they intend to actually make that?
I think it froze again.
I think you might have froze for a second yet. So can you repeat that question? I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yeah, sure. So, if it's recommended that we not propose crowdfunding until at least 6 months after working social media, what keeps people returning to that idea if they don't yet know that you intend to actually make something up
Oh, that's great. I mean, a couple of things. It all depends on, number one, your story that you're trying to tell. There's two stories to be told with social media that will bleed into crowdfunding. First story is a film story, of course. And for that, when you have content, whether it's artwork, whether it's, a page from the script, if you just post things about it, excuse me, introducing people to the world of your film, that might be enough if it's an interesting enough subject, and if you're tapping into the right audiences. That's one story. The other story is your story as a filmmaker. Now, if you're just a filmmaker because you want to make it as a filmmaker, unfortunately, that's not a good enough story anymore, because why should you make it and why should somebody else not? They're just being very blunt and honest about those things. So you need a bigger story. Now, again, just thinking of the Mayweather Pacquiao fight, not bringing up anything. I hope there's no Filipino. I was pissed too. I think the whole world was pissed actually. But I remember there was a segment about Mayweather, and I knew very little about his upbringing. But when I saw this segment, I saw a little bit on social media, and then on the actual show, I was like, man, this guy came from a crazy, rough upbringing. Didn't have his dad for a number of years. I was getting empathetic. I was like, man, I kind of want this guy to win. And then, of course, he starts acting all, Mayweather, and then it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's a bit of a jerk. So I don't like him anymore. But the story was so strong that I was kind of like, damn, I kind of want to root for this guy. I'm a hardcore Pacquiao fan. So it all depends on the stories that we're telling and how well we can spin those two stories. Ultimately, you can hint at the fact that you're going to crowdfund, but that's after you've put in the value and the work to get people talking back to you. That's the only hard part there is.
What I like that you said here, and then we have another question, but is if I think about it as a storyteller, I'm going to write a story. I got up out of bed, I went downtown, I ran into this person, we took a bus trip to wherever. I have this sequence that I go through where events unfold till you get to your conflict, then your climax and all of that. If when I create my page, I think of myself as a storyteller. I'm introducing my film, my topic, my event, my whatever it is I'm crowdfunding. Months before I'm going to ask for anything, it's no different than if you pick up a book and you read and you get halfway through it before you find out that something's unfolding. I mean, in other words, I think the idea that you're saying is if you add content, you develop it, you allow people to get involved, you put something, here, maybe a photo, you talk about your casting or whatever, but it's the kind of thing that because you constantly are giving or constantly creating a story on your site, that people return because of that. And then as the story unfolds, you can get down to, hey, folks, we're getting ready to launch a campaign, we're getting ready to do this, and you can introduce that fact, but you don't just start right out with, okay, I got a campaign here, give me money, and this is our movie.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. And again, I'll give you guys a little bit of homework. Actually, not homework, it's research. I want you to go on Twitter and follow a guy named Gary King.
Yeah. Gary's a good guy.
Yep, he's totally amazing. He keeps us in the loop with everything in his life.
He sure does.
Not just his film career, his personal life, everything. But I've seen this guy go from... And then I realized he was running his own campaign at the same time, and I was like, wow. And that blew my mind. So he basically does social media really, really well. He keeps us in touch. He talks back to you, and he's a brilliant, humble guy. And I see his career go from, doing stuff in living in Astoria, Queens, and doing films in New York, and now he's in Hollywood.
LA,
bigger stuff. I mean, the guy's, and I feel good because I've seen his career go in all these years through Twitter and Facebook as well, because we're friends there. But I would follow him and just look at what he does on a regular basis. That's a pretty good lesson in social media. And another good lesson in social media and content, well, Gary, I say Gary mainly because he does launch frequent crowdfunding campaigns on a decently regular basis. So it's good to see him talking and being him, talking about his films, talking about film in general, and then all of a sudden there's a campaign and he'll be successful and life is good. Another set of wonderful ladies that I think everybody should be following, and I was going to say they're the closest thing. They're the only people that I would say are social media gurus in the entire world that I've met, is Jessica King and Julie Keck. King is a Fink, they're called, on Twitter. They know everything. They're hardcore about etiquette in social media and beyond. They have a great book that you can download that I highly recommend you download called Social Media Charm School. Goes from everything from how to do it for film, screenwriting, and crowdfunding. So definitely check those two out.
Two great resources. And Gary's a great filmmaker, too. You got to see his movies. How to Write a Sherman Musical Song, is a wonderful movie. And Jessica and Julie are really, truly, truly cool people and good filmmakers and story crafters as well. We have another question. We've got about 5 minutes. And I want you to have the final word. We might be able to fudge a couple minutes after that.
Yeah.
Question, Alex?
Yes. Hi, my name is Alex. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
Hey. I'm also a part of a group at my university that is that does short films every semester, and they do crowdfunding campaigns for them. Relating to the question, if you're a student org asking for money for to make a short film, who would the target audience be? Would it be other students, the school, the community? Who would we make the campaign video for?
So I wouldn't recommend getting wrapped up in the whole student world, because let's be honest, you're a student. There's a reason we're probably asking for funds, quote unquote, is because we don't have funds. So I think the biggest lesson any student can learn is to get a head start and not go for their friends and their other students, but start looking for their audience now. Their audience are not other student filmmakers. They're not other filmmakers. That's the community. Your audience are the people that you know are going to want to see your film. So one thing that I tend to tell students, because I speak to a lot of them on a regular basis, is when you're starting out as a student filmmaker, don't necessarily make the movies that you want to make. Make the movies that you know there's an audience for. This is what Hollywood does. They do it really well because, they got money. But let's say, make a horror movie. You might hate horror. Just make one. Make the kind of horror movie that you would want to see. But the reason to do it is because you know there's an audience out there. And it's easy to tap into them. You love romantic comedies? Make one. You love documentaries? Perfect. Figure out what your subject is. Find a compelling enough subject. Make a short doc. Find those audience members that will like that kind of a documentary and basically invite them to become a part of it. That's what I've been telling a lot of student filmmakers, because I'm the kind of guy, when I started my film career, and I never went to film school, I was self-taught, I was making the movies that I wanted to make. Yeah, first 5 years were wasted because I didn't get into one festival, nobody was seeing my film, the internet wasn't the biggest thing that it is now, DVDs were still the way you got movies out. Now, last 5 or 6 films I've made, they've had an audience because I said, you know what, there's science fiction, I'm going to make a sci-fi movie. There's sex comedy. I hate sex comedies. I made one. I made 2 actually, one that I don't speak of. These were just things that I was thinking because you know what, I need to tap into an audience before I can find an audience that wants to see the kind of crazy, weird things that I do.
It's going to sound really strange, but you go to a gasoline station to get gasoline, and it's kind of the obvious. But if you want to get a movie seen, go to the people who want to see that kind of movie. Go to where they are. Don't. If there's 2 people in the world who like, I can't think of a genre, but ballet basketball films with a cast of thousands, and if there's only 2 people that attracts, you're really barking up. You're making it hard. You're paddling upstream.
Yeah.
But if there's millions of horror fans, and I'm not saying make a horror movie, I'm just saying, but if or sci-fi or westerns or whatever, there's an audience for this stuff, and you can deliver. I agree with you completely. Make it for the audience. Make it the movie you want to see in that genre, and make it well.
Absolutely, yeah. And because again, I'm a big believer. You got to make the movies you want to make. But I think the one thing that in my youth that I never realized was I can make a pretty damn good horror movie, if I needed to. And it'll be the kind of movie that I'd be proud to say is mine, and it's an interesting horror film. So, but it would still have the same things that are standard in my films, like no CGI, practical effects, this and that. But it's me. It's 100% me, and it's a horror movie, which means I can have an audience. And at the end of the day, hey, that's all. Our films, however they're funded, get seen.
John, it's been awesome talking with you. We're going to have to go. I'm going to give you the last word here, and tell us what.
I have one last question. Okay.
Oh, now, okay, now.
Yeah, no.
Go for it. Grab it. We'll squeeze the time out if you got the time.
I got it.
I just have a quick question. What advice would you give to someone who doesn't like social media and doesn't particularly care for using it and all that?
That's a good one to end on. How many more minutes I got? 15. Though. I'll give you the quick version. Again, I'm very honest with things. I think I said it before. Crowdfunding would not exist without social media. I could probably end that question with that, because I think it's self-explanatory. I'll quote a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, and also the head of Indiegogo Film, Mark Hofstadter. He did say at one point that the time of the shy filmmaker is over. So, the tough thing is, if we don't like social media, then we probably should be looking for our funds through investors, through grant proposals, through art institutions, through whatever things we need to do, because you gotta like socializing in order to move to the next logical step, which is socializing with the intention of inviting people to give you money to help make an awesome film that you all had a part in making. So my biggest advice, ending on that positive note, is I think we should all give it a try, because social media is not going anywhere. Filmmaking is going, I'm not going to say it's going away, but I think smart filmmakers in the next 10 years, and I don't make predictions, but I'm going to make a quick one. The next 10 years, if there's no online social component, those filmmakers won't make it.
Wow.
So we got to get social.
And John has the last word.
I'll end with one more quick thing.
Sure.
If we're not, and if we do all that and we hate social media, it's not our thing, totally fine, but we still need to crowdfund, totally okay. Find yourself somebody who can run the campaign.
You froze. You froze, but I'm going to guess that you said find someone who will run your campaign?
Find somebody who will run your social media part of your campaign like a boss.
Well, and that is valid, and we haven't talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it in other shows that you and I have done, or in other places. But you, as the filmmaker, don't have to. You may not be the best person to run your campaign, and you may have to hire somebody, or you may have a friend or a family member who would be the best person. It's not that you have to do each and everything all the time, and that. So if you're not a social media person, but you still want to get a movie made, you can find somebody who can help you with that. Or as John pointed out, there's the traditional means. You can go to the SEC, you can find investments, you can form limited partnerships, you can go to your aunts and uncles, and you can do bake sales and car washes and things like that. However you need to get your money. John, you are again awesome for the taking the time and the information. I want to let you have the last word here in the last minute. But I really do appreciate this. Hopefully it'll be up in the next 48 hours with all of the little blips and blurbs. The value that has, I think, been generated from your conversation and your thoughts and from the work that you do is worth having it, even if the Skyping is imperfect. It's great. I appreciate it.
No, definitely, Rex. And again, thank you guys for having me. I really do hope it was insightful, informative, and inspirational. Because apparently I like it, the word it.
You freeze it on the end.
Crowdfunding is the way films get made, and it's
You froze.
it's another thing to basically keep up to date that. But you guys, they make it films.
John, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Have a great day. I'll call you in a little while from my car just so that we can debrief. But you've been fabulous. Thanks, and thanks so much.
Definitely, guys. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Bye now. All right. So fantastic. Okay.